Hello and welcome to the second edition of The Power of Nine, a series of interviews with inspiring people, experts and visionaries whose stories and work embody the 9 commitments of extraordinary next-level self-leadership. So my intention behind The Power of Nine in these conversations is to do my bit in empowering the next generation of changemakers, solopreneurs and entrepreneurs with insights, tools and frameworks to build what I believe are the 3 most vital resources for thriving in today's turbulent world: inner calm, authenticity and creative resilience. It's a call to arms for anyone who is ready for both the next level and their next level. In this episode, I talk to the inspiration that is Mr. Mike Bufton. Mike founded arguably one of Dubai's greatest club nights and brands, Tonic, and was a notable pioneer of the incredible growth of Dubai as a global clubbing destination. He's since moved back to Manchester with his family, reinventing Tonic along the way into the Tonic Effect, a holistic fitness and wellness business. But Mike's journey has not been without its challenges, and his commitment, courage and resilience throughout is an inspirational example to anyone who is being driven by a deep purpose and passion for what they are currently building or planning to build. Over the next 40 minutes, we get into the power of purpose, commitment and surrender, and the crucial role they played in keeping Mike steadfast and resilient in building the Tonic brand, as well as several priceless wisdom bombs that anyone at any stage of creating a passion business should devour. Enjoy. Okay, Mr. Bufton, thank you so much for taking the time to join me today. And I guess in many ways, this is a return on the time that you gave me to share my story a couple of weeks ago for the Tonic Effect. How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you, Christian. Thank you, mate. Yeah, and first and foremost, mate, an inspirational story at that. And thank you once again for your insight into your life over the past 15, 20 years, because, it definitely inspired me. And I know that a lot of our viewers and listeners have messaged in saying it's a fantastic inspiration for them. So thank you, mate.
Brilliant. And I'm absolutely certain that your story is going to do the same thing. So just to recap, and I've done an intro into this on The Power of Nine. It's my kind of coaching and teaching platform that brings to life the 9 commitments that help me save and transform my own life, that ladder up into the 3 things that I think are really important for everyone right now, which is inner calm, which is living living with authenticity, get those words out, and prioritizing the energy of joy in our life, particularly now as we hurtle through so much unprecedented change, particularly in service of the next generation of change makers, solopreneurs and entrepreneurs that are stepping into their biggest game and wanting to build their kind of purpose-driven businesses. So the purpose of these interviews is to capture the stories, the ideas and the wisdom of people that I feel are embodying those 9 commitments, either through what they're doing, through their work, through their teaching. And you're somebody that certainly does that. And our relationship goes back, many, many years. So I think just as a kickoff, mate, I mean, I'm a big believer in the power of story, and the fact that, every story will give to each person what that person's soul needs. So I think just as a kickoff, could you give us a sort of an executive summary, like the preface of your book, so to speak, of the last sort of 15, 16 years?
Yeah, sure. It'd be a pleasure, mate. I think I'm going to start at the end of university. So finished a degree in psychology, not really knowing what I wanted to do with my life, as I think a lot of youngsters do. And I was, during university, DJing as a hobby. And it was just a bit of a time killer, really, and carried on doing that. So finished university. I wanted to work in the music business. I knew that much. Not doing what I wasn't too sure. And I actually landed an intern role with Sony Music just after university, which I did for just under a year in the international A&R department, which was incredibly interesting. And for me, it actually gave me a little bit of an eye-opener to the industry, and made me realise actually it wasn't quite what I wanted to do, just at that age anyway. I think I wanted like the hands-on version of music industry, which was DJing. So I went from there, went to Technics Academy, had a bit of a kind of year out, because I didn't have a gap year. From Technics Academy for a year, I went to Academy of Contemporary Music and did a music production course. And then I was looking for jobs in studios, actually. And that kind of didn't materialize because of the incredible competition for engineer roles. I was doing pirate radio at the same time, interested in Dubai. An opportunity came up in Dubai. This is just an executive summary, by the way.
Yeah.
Opportunity came up in Dubai to be a resident DJ for a venue there. So I kind of took it with both hands. I was mid-20s at this time. Flew over to Dubai. Also took with me a mixtape from my pirate radio days.
What year was this?
That was 2006 that I went over.
Right. Okay. And what club was it?
It's called Lotus One. It was like a venue. Hotel, yeah, it was like a kind of restaurant stroke club.
Yeah.
Came alive after 11 o'clock. Yeah, it was great. So I had this call to be a resident DJ there. Went over Valentine's Day. I remember landing 2006. And it all kind of snowballed very quickly from there because I met the guys from Radio 1. That was all through connections I made on forums previous to going to Dubai. Gave them my pirate radio tape. They loved it. Was like, right, come up with a brand name. Audio Tonic was born. After the radio show came the events at the world famous 360 Degrees. And then after that followed the record label and the artist agency and a few kind of marketing and ad agencies in between, doing some freelance work. Did my 10-year, 11-year stint in Dubai, back to Manchester in the UK, with a lot of ups and downs along the way, which we'll talk about, I'm sure.
We'll get into, yeah.
And then, worked for an event and marketing agency for the last 3 years, 2 different agencies here in the UK. And now I've launched the Tonic Effect, which is my new venture. That's my executive summary.
Wow. And the story arc of that is a lot smoother than it actually was. And as you alluded to there, we'll get into some of the details around that, particularly in what happened in the latter stages of Dubai, which I think is a really important part of the story. So, I mean, what I'm straight away picking up from that is you're somebody that has stayed really committed to what they're passionate about, which is music and the music production. And you've stayed steadfast in that, which is really admirable because one of the 9s is obviously purpose, which is a lever for joy. And by having the courage and the surrender to stay anchored into what we love, it provides us with a huge amount of resilience to deal with a lot of things that are going to get in our way, which you have done. So can you just talk us a little bit more through the specifics of the Audio Tonic journey? Because that's really how we first met. I mean, the fact I had to ask you about Lotus One, which means I think we first met in Dubai when the 360 night started up, or a day started up. So just talk us a little bit more through the specifics about how you built Audio Tonic from conception through to when it was at its peak stage.
Yeah, so Audio Tonic was a brand name that was actually conceived in the back of a taxi on my way back from IKEA randomly. People say, how did you come up with it? It's just like, well, I don't know. It was just one of those moments of, I'm not going to say brilliance because it is a good name, but I'm not that arrogant. Just in a taxi on my way home, I think I probably bought some Malma shelves and maybe a plant. And I remember it just popping into my head. It's just like Audio Tonic, this name, Audio Tonic. Yeah, it's invigorating. It's what, it's refreshing. I think refreshing is quite a key word as well, because when I moved to Dubai, I'd come with a record bag, 2 of them, full of kind of more electro stuff, electro sound, with a bit of kind of techie stuff at the time, but it was more kind of electro progressive-y vibe. And I wanted to bring to the city a sound that was different. And I'd spent obviously a lot of time in UK. In my kind of 23 to 25-year-old age, I was frequenting quite a lot of the London clubs like the Cross, the Key, Bagley's, so, it was that kind of cool underground sound that, wasn't super underground, but it was accessible. And I wanted to bring that to Dubai, because the research that I had done, obviously, you guys that were putting on the Vibe parties were bringing over some massive names. And from the research I'd done before moving there, and I had been to Dubai to see what was going on, so bit of market research. It was all this very big room sound, and although the electro stuff was technically big room, it was very unheard in Dubai from what I kind of gathered, and there was only one or two people playing it at the time. So yeah, it was just a great opportunity for me to be able to showcase a brand new sound, and yeah, the Audio Tonic brand started off as what was a radio show on Radio One. I remember my first show at the station, absolutely crapping myself because I'd never been in a proper radio studio before. You know, I was used to porta cabins and garden sheds from my pirate radio days, and literally, gypsy campsites. It was like total different things. Like, oh my god.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like, right, there you go, plopped in the hot seat. I think it was 9 o'clock, my first show, 9 till 12, 3 hour show. No decks, it was just two CD trays. So I didn't really have an idea what I was doing, if I'm honest, Christian.
Did you not get any kind of guidance or onboarding or anything like that in terms of how to just deal with switching from audio to the music? Because I imagine you had to feed ads into the whole thing as well, didn't you?
Yeah. I mean, this is the thing. I'd had an introduction to the studio, that week. I think I've been in there for a couple of hours, just getting to know my way around. But, and I think as a DJ, you're expected to know what to do. But, a deck's a mixer and two at the time, what was vinyl, I think I had one CDJ, which was it was a CDJ 900 or something in the club. So everything was on vinyl. So I was just playing off CDs. But it was like two trays and there was no facility to mix it. So, to be honest, mate, I winged it. But you learn from those experiences very, very quickly, and you learn to adapt very quickly when you're put in a situation that is, quite frankly, pretty damn scary. So yeah, Audio Tonic started the radio show, kind of picked up pace, and then about a year after the radio show, we started the events at 360, and which was for Audio Tonic. A game changer because we were live on radio at that time as well. So I had a Thursday night show with Audio Tonic, and then the Friday 7 till 10 we were live on radio. We had ambient mics around the venue, obviously guest DJs flying in from around the world who were live on Radio 1 from 7 to 10. I was on the mic, give it some welly, everyone make some noise. We're live on Radio 1. Yeah, the whole place went mad. You probably experienced it. And then, it just grew and grew as a brand that became known for bringing quality underground DJs, but at the same time, the music had to be accessible to a degree, to a point. We picked up some great nightlife awards along the way. We had obviously some DJ Mag accolades. We had Resident Advisor come over and do a review, and then we went from the events into a record label. To this day, 33 releases. We haven't released for a few years now. And also an artist agency, which was garnering and supporting local artists.
No, amazing story.
Yeah, it was quite a journey over 10 years.
Yeah, I mean the time frame of that, the chronology of it's amazing that you managed to kind of learn and adapt so quickly to so much. For me, I think that demonstrates one of the key things that I love about the Nine, which is what I call creative resilience and commitment to what you're doing, like a very deep, passionate commitment to the cause, and being able to control your response to situations like being bunged into a radio studio for the first time and told to get on with it. But also, going live from, because you've got to remember where we were in a very sensitive environment, culturally speaking, to be going live from an environment where there was alcohol and there was music and there was, how did you manage to stay so steadfast and committed to what you were doing? To anyone else listening to this who's probably thinking like this sounds like an amazing journey, but there's just no way I could do it, what advice would you give in terms of dealing with the challenges that you must have faced along the way, and what were some of those main challenges that you typically had to try and overcome?
I'll start with the challenges, Christian, if you don't mind. I think the first one with challenges, I think was a personal thing, and that was getting over this thought of, am I doing the right thing, or I'm not good enough to do it. And you always compare yourself to other people, and that, for me, it was like comparing myself to Pete Tong all the time. It's like, well, do I sound as good as him, or are my live broadcast as good as the ones that Radio One do from Mambo?
Mm.
So first and foremost, stop comparing yourself with other people. I
Mm.
think once I started to get over that and realize, actually, no, I'm carving my own path here. I'm doing my own thing, and I believe in myself. It started to fall into place, and obviously with that also comes the point of, the more you do something, the better you get at it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Simple as that. So we could go on about the 10,000 hour rule and whatnot, but I think even in this position, it was a case of every week you start to get better, and things, you learn from your mistakes and you make sure that they don't happen again, or if they do, they're not as bad. So yeah, I think having that confidence, I think finding confidence also comes from speaking to other people and not being afraid to receive positive criticism if necessary. So I'll give you an example of that, talking about sensitivities of live radio and the music. I was so committed to this creative path of pushing super underground music to the masses, but after I think maybe 6 or 7 months, maybe the first season, we had some resistance from the hotel saying, is it the right music for this beautiful venue? And I'm like saying, well, hang on a minute, I'm bringing you some incredible DJs, amazing music, and then I had to think, well, actually, it might be a little bit too hard what we're doing. It's 7 o'clock at night, 7 to 10 o'clock at night. So do we need to adapt that? So of course we did, and then we made them happy. So I think again there, it's just taking some constructive criticism and using it to your advantage, and also don't take things to heart. Don't take things personally.
Yeah.
In terms of sensitivities, I mean, being live on radio, having to tell DJs before they come, listen, guys, please don't play any records that have reference to sex or drugs or anything that might get me taken off air.
Yeah.
So I had this constant worry when we were live on radio, and I kind of almost had the mic like in me, with me at all times in my pocket, just in case I heard a track which started swearing, so I could kind of just start rapping over. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. It's like I was getting ready to wax lyrical, even though I don't wax lyrical. It's like, yeah, 360, yeah. We're cutting in for an advert break, and just hope the technician on the other end is going to cut it in. But I suppose it keeps you on your toes, and it's all part of the journey. So yeah, I mean, obviously what I alluded to before in terms of that positive criticism and self-belief, confidence, knowing that you have to make mistakes in order to learn is really important. And I guess just not being afraid to experiment as well. I think you've got to push the boundaries. You've got to try new things and commit to something that you might not feel at the time is the right thing. If you feel it in your gut, which I'm a massive believer in, go for it.
Yeah, amazing. And like, people have seen like sort of words I've been throwing up over this as you've been talking, but what's coming out of this is just such a powerful message about the backbone really of building authenticity around what you're doing, which is just constantly being curious as to how you can adapt, surrendering to the possibilities that are around you, but most importantly, just having that courage to stay within your lane, but not so tightly that you become resistant to the possibilities, like you're talking about, talking to the venue, and just making that slight adjustment. Because my lasting memory of 360 wasn't the hard tech, it was more the nights where you had people like, was it Dusty? Dusky and people like that. So just a beautiful kind of like swirling, lovely melodic house sound, rather than the hard stuff. So amazing. So Mike, if you wouldn't mind, can you then sort of talk us, because I know obviously things like a lot of our generation that was in Dubai, everything comes to an end at some point, cataclysmically in some cases, and naturally in others. But for Audio Tonic, just talk us through the series of events that led to the end of Audio Tonic as we knew it back then.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, it was a pretty stressful time. I think it all happened very quickly, and in the latter stages of Audiotonic's reign in Dubai, our tenure at 360 anyway, we had quite a few changes which were beyond our control in terms of the venue management, and Jumeirah Beach Hotel handed over the management of the venue to a new branch of management for all the restaurants that fell underneath the Jumeirah Group, who had a little bit of a different vision, and it kind of got to a point where contracts were changed, and I think very cleverly to a point where we were, as promoters, privy to revenue from takings behind the bar if we hit a certain bracket.
Yeah.
And every week we seem to be just falling short of this, and we as a brand had to continue keeping up with the Joneses and bringing our international DJs every week, as was in our contract, and doing our marketing across social media and glossy magazines, and ultimately spending money every week. So these targets just kept on getting harder and harder to hit, and I think also combined with the fact that there was a lot of new venues in the city, loads of new promoters. Obviously, the city had boomed and it was continuing to boom, so we were up against lots of new venues, and let's face it, probably a bit of a different movement from the nightlife industry in terms of its punters, the people that were going to different places and trying out different new things. There were some operational issues at the venue which people were getting really annoyed with, which put them off from coming. And then to really just add insult to injury, I think that the end of Audiotonic at 360 anyway was the weather, believe it or not. And this is the universe's way of saying maybe you need to finish now. But in the final season of Audiotonic at 360, we had about 8 events cancelled, and they were down to either sandstorms or rain. So we were obviously predominantly an outdoor venue. We had downstairs, but people didn't want to go to 360 for downstairs. They wanted the terrace upstairs.
No, of course.
So honestly, you couldn't make it up, Christian. Yeah. I mean, I remember I was on the phone to my wife one Friday morning, just crying. I was like, "You're not going to believe this, but it's been cancelled." So at this point, my wife and kids, they had to move back to the UK already. Okay. So I'll rewind a little bit. So 10th year of Audiotonic was all great because it was 10 years at a venue. It's a hell of a long time for Dubai and anywhere actually. But I kind of saw problems coming. So, quite simple, mate. I had to send my wife and the kids back to the UK because we couldn't afford schooling or a very conservative 2-bedroom villa in the Springs. It's not like we were living in a mansion. Do you know what I mean? So it kind of all came to a head, and this weather thing was just a complete nail in the coffin, and it was like, right, that's it. I can't do this anymore. And combined with that, also 360 was going down a completely different direction in terms of the music programming, and we had the wrong kind of crowd coming, and it was just tarnishing the venue. So I did get out at the right time, but it was all incredibly stressful. Last 2 years of Audiotonic.
Music programming, you mean like the kind of the style of music that they were asking you to play?
Yeah. Right. So I mean, we were essentially kind of running the programming of the venue in terms of what nights went in there, but it was like, we need an urban night, and now we need that kind of a night, and now we need that night, and then obviously you've got your night on a Friday. So unfortunately, with a lot of venues, when all sorts of different music are brought into the mix, it completely ruins the dynamic, and that's what happened with 360. And I wouldn't blame anyone that came in and was playing the wrong kind of music personally, but I would say from the top down it was wrong. And for 10 years we ran just house music at the venue, and it was incredibly popular for 10 years.
Your brand was the consistency of your sound. I mean, you always knew what you were going to get at Audiotonic without it being predictable, but you kind of knew the space that you owned within the nightlife scene. If you wanted kind of like, as you said, eclectic big room house, you'd go to Trilogy, or you'd go on the rooftop, if you wanted something a bit more underground, a bit, you know, yeah, I mean, it was underground. I mean, it was the coolest, as far as I'm concerned. It was the coolest night that you could go to sort of hear.
But it was accessible, wasn't it?
Yes, exactly. It wasn't sort of like too left field, that it was, you know, odd and a bit, what's what I'm looking for, kind of elitist or anything. You know, sometimes there are music venues where you just kind of feel like it's just a bit up its own arse, really. But it was beautiful in the way it was put together. So, given that you had the nights and you had the music label and the artists and everything, was there anything that you might have done differently in retrospect when you saw the event side of the enterprise starting to not fail, it's not the right word because that's not fair, but it wasn't moving in the way you wanted it to move anymore? Was there anything else that you could have perhaps done slightly differently?
Yeah, I can say one thing's for certain, and I think this message, I hope, will be absorbed by your followers, your members, and that is to not keep your eggs in one basket. And also, you know, don't be a slave to exclusivity, because we were a slave to exclusivity in Jumeirah, and we didn't do anything else anywhere else, you know, kind of on a grand scale, because we were committed to 360 and that venue. It was like Audio Tonic 360.
Yeah.
So we did start to branch out under different guises. You know, it was like an Audio Tonic brand, you know, driven under a different name at other venues, but you know, we were exclusive essentially, and maybe it was my fault keeping all my eggs in one basket. So that's one bit of advice: don't keep your eggs in one basket, and don't rest on your laurels and become too comfortable, I guess.
Yeah, great advice. I think that ladders up into, because there's a lot of talk around personal branding at the moment, which seems like a bit of an obvious thing, but everyone's talking about personal branding, and I think that's a really important one. Is obviously have your you know, reflect who you are and your authenticity and what you do, but also be open, be curious about what else is possible, and be adaptable and versatile in that way. Great advice, mate. And sort of taking the conversation onto a slightly more personal level, that must have been a very challenging time. So your family, you know, your you kind of like your wife and daughter were back in the UK. Your passion project was struggling. What were some of the ways that you used to cope to get through that because you eventually left Dubai, didn't you? You eventually sort of decided that was it. So how did you actually get through that personally, emotionally, mentally?
Yeah, it was a taxing time, very, very challenging time. And I think with the transition of Jen and the kids moving back to UK, and, you know, me moving into a, you know, kind of little one bedder in Sports City, where, you know, I'd had my family with me throughout my time in Dubai, was right, this is kind of, it's now or never. You know, I've got to try and make this work. So I think I had this kind of pressure on me that, you know, I had, you know, obviously family to feed, but they were, you know, 3,000 miles away, put a roof over their head. So I think for me during that time, first and foremost, I'm so lucky to have incredible family around me. You know, and I think if people don't, or they're not privileged enough to have, or lucky enough, should I say, to have a family support network around them, then, you know, if it's not friends, then they need to have some kind of a support network around them, you know, and there's plenty of those now, you know, in terms of kind of mental health charities as well. What was most important for me at the time was also always having this optimism is top of my priority list. It's things are going to be okay. Things are going to work out. I have to trust in myself, trust in the process, trust in the universe to guide me on this path, that whatever that will be, if it's good or bad, it's going to work out. It's going to be okay. And it was, for me, movement. It was fitness. It was Thai boxing 3 times a week. It was running. It was meditation every morning. And I can't even start to be an advocate for the power of meditation and how it affects the body and the mind. You know, I think if I hadn't have been meditating every morning and exercising 3 or 4 times a week, I'd be a very, very different man. And I've said that in my story, and I'm a firm believer in that. So, yeah, I guess they were what kept me going, mate, because week to week was like, what's going to happen? It was just a roulette. It was this kind of spinning wheel of, is the weather going to be all right? Are we going to make money? Is there going to be a problem here? Or, it was just, I was just constantly fighting this kind of negativism, but trying to stay optimistic all the time.
Mate, that's such a powerful message for anyone that's going through that. And I think we share a little bit of that kind of in our own stories, is the ability to, not to be dragged into interrogation, and try and stay in a kind of a witness state when all this stuff is going on, and don't retreat. Surrender, but don't retreat. There's a big difference, and I think you're a paragon of that. And it's a great example. It's like, surrender to what's going on. Surrender that there are forces that perhaps we don't understand. That if we have faith, we stay active, we stay calm, and we take care of our mental health, and things will ultimately work themselves out in the way that they're supposed to. And of course, now you're back in Manchester. And what I love is I know that you sort of went back into the events industry, but the Tonic Effect and the spirit and the essence of Tonic is still alive in mind, nutrition, fitness. So how have you, obviously after that kind of, having to deal with all of that happening in Dubai, where was the motivation? How did you sort of reinvent Tonic to what it is today?
Yeah, so I was wondering how I can reinvent Audio Tonic, and I didn't want to let the brand just fade away. It's clear that I won't be throwing any parties anytime soon. They might be a little bit different in terms of.
You may not be far away.
Exactly. Well, you never know, mate. Yeah, there's a lot of kind of health and wellness-driven events now, which are becoming ever more popular. I think there's definitely a market for that, house music and house music and health. There you go.
Yeah.
Music's never left me. My love for upfront music's never left me. I still DJ when we can. Obviously, I haven't for the last year because of COVID, but I still DJ out in Manchester 2 or 3 times a month, playing what I love, more of a bar vibe, but still the housey stuff. And I just kind of thought with Audio Tonic, how can I repurpose it? I want to, ultimately with the Tonic Effect, it's about health and wellness of the body and mind for everybody. So, I wouldn't want to pigeonhole it to just high flying professionals or artists and DJs. But I think moving down the line, at the moment, my client base is from all walks of life, in their 20s, 30s, 40s, all the way through to their 60s. But I think the Tonic Effect, my aim is to focus more on music industry, because there's a lot of DJs, producers, people that work in the industry that, as for the last year, COVID, they've really been hit hard in terms of, that kind of that mental space. DJs are well known for not living the most healthiest of lifestyles. And, it's me having kind of trying to make them realize that actually, guys, if you don't look after yourself now, you're going to have a short career. You might be in your 40s and, you probably couldn't even, walk to the shop and get a paper because, because of your lifestyle, really. So, that's an extreme end of the spectrum. But I think Tonic Effect for me, it's fresh, it's invigorating, it's got all the elements that I had from Audio Tonic, which is up front. It's got the energy that I brought to Audio Tonic. Brilliant. And it's just something kind of quite new in that my target market is everybody, but it's also people from the music industry.
So you've transposed those kind of core pillars and those core values that you built Audio Tonic around, that freshness, that kind of sense of invigoration, and kind of anchored it now into actually helping people with health and fitness. So in simple terms, who do you, if I could kind of pin you down on one target audience, who do you help, and fundamentally how do you help them through the Tonic Effect?
I would say those that need motivation and inspiration. Not necessarily those that are seeking advice for certain goals, because I think everybody knows what their goals are and what they need to do to get to them. So my job is just to make them realize how they can get there and be that motivating factor, because a lot of people, in fact 95% of people, will start something and then they'll, after 3 or 4 weeks, just completely drop off the radar. and they don't continue it. So my job is to keep them motivated, and obviously as adaptations take place, make sure that we're using progressive overload and adapting lifestyle changes, whether that be sleep, diet, liquid consumption, even mindset training as well, which obviously you're a specialist in. So yeah, that's where I'd say I'd help people. And fill in that knowledge gap as well, because some of my clients come and they've got no idea where to start. They know whether they need to go into the gym, but they don't know what they want to achieve or how to achieve that. So I simply put a program together for them, and it's not just face to face. I've got a couple of online clients as well.
Okay.
It's going well so far.
Brilliant. And how would people reach out to you right now if they wanted to sort of get in touch and have a chat about what you do and how you can help them?
Instagram's a good one, the Tonic Effect, and we're on Facebook as well, also the Tonic Effect. And just come along, say hello, drop me an inbox DM, and you can have a look on Instagram what we're doing. Gives you an idea of our vibe, our energy, and our ethos. So yeah, Facebook, Instagram, or you can also email the toniceffect@gmail.com. Brilliant,
mate. Before I ask you the last question, I just I'm in awe of the story, and from a personal perspective, I mean, you're somebody I look at. I mean, it's funny when you talked about the connection between house music and fitness. One of the best businesses I never launched was something called Gym Tonic, which I don't know if you ever knew about this, which was I did in Dubai. And I basically used to produce myself little mixes that were designed around, because I was training for a marathon and doing various bits of fitness, because I'm terrible. I'm exactly what you just mentioned. I'm somebody that will go into a gym for a couple of weeks and then I'll forget where the gym was for the next 4 years. So I used to build myself these little mixes that were programmed and sequenced to help me push through like 2-hour runs. And eventually I called them Gym Tonics, and someone looked at me and what a great idea. And I had not agreements, but I had conversations with Adidas, with 3 or 4 record labels in London, music supervisors. And because of my own shit, pardon the language back then, it just was another one of the things that just eventually just dwindled away. But when I look at you, somebody that from a very early age has been very committed to music, very in the sound, has gone out, moved countries, built a life, I would probably say that Audio Tonic is a legacy. It's a Dubai legacy brand. If they did a legacy brand book in 10 years and you're not in it, I'd be horrified. And I don't say
Thank you, mate.
Play sunshine virtually down there, but it really was. I mean, from anybody that was in Dubai when we were there, it was an incredibly special time. And if anyone's watching this and has been 360, they'll know what we're talking about. It was special, right? And you created that, and you're now back, and you're still delivering that. And I just think I'm in awe of your commitment, and you just capture so much of what I'm trying to do through the Power of 9, which is ultimately guide people to become what they know and live what they love. And becoming what you know isn't just like, oh, I've learned all this stuff and I can do that. And it's becoming what they know at their deepest level, coming the lessons that they learn at soul level, through their struggle, through their challenges, through their story. And they live very proudly and confidently in that. And they're continuing to do what they love to do. And I think that you embody that. So, mate, thank you so much for sharing that with me and for everybody listening today. I think there's so much value to take from this. And a final question, mate, if I had a magic wand, I wish I did, and I waved it, and I could transport you 5 years into the future, what's going on? Where are you? What does your life look like?
Oh, wow, 5 years. So that'll take me to, right, well, given my age away, 45. We're definitely still doing what I love. That's moving. So movement. I don't ever see myself retiring, actually. That's not going to happen. I always want to be moving. I'd say 5 years from now, I'm looking at potentially some boutique Tonic Effect style kind of gyms, coffee shops, juice bars, obviously decks. People can come and shop some new music. They can come and read the paper. They can drink good coffee. They can drink healthy drinks. They can have a snack bite to eat and also work out at the same time. In what capacity, whereabouts, I don't know. Probably in Manchester still, because I love this place. I love the city. And then with the intention of potentially a global rollout in some key cities around the world. Dubai, obviously, Barcelona, Sydney.
Wow.
Why not? New York.
Why
That
not
would be
indeed?
nice. That would
Why
be
not
nice.
indeed?
So
If there's any entrepreneurs or VCs listening to that, you've been listening to someone that has everything that you cannot teach somebody, and that is that commitment, that resilience, that passion and belief in themselves. So, Mike, thank you so much.
mate, Christian, thank you for having me on.
No, it's my pleasure, mate. It's my pleasure. And best of luck with everything. I'm sure we will be staying in touch. And yeah, just wishing you the best of luck going forward, mate. Take care, yeah?
Thank you, mate. Thank you so much. And likewise with you, mate, as well. And yeah, thanks again for having me on. It's been a pleasure, mate, and an honour, Christian.
All right. Lovely, mate. Take care. See you soon.
Take care, mate.
Bye-bye.